How's it going, guys? So I'm gonna be perfectly honest with you. I really wasn't even in the mood really to watch SmackDown this week. It's just I don't know what it is. We kind of all know where this show is going. We got the MSG show. They were excited to be in front of a live crowd again. And, things started to dip off. Now, this show we're going to talk about, there were some moments here, but overall, we kind of see where this is going, with the women and everything all together. So let's talk about this. We'll talk about the high points and everything that it was revolved around this show. So it was draft night. Night one. You might be saying, well, Brad, like, how could you not be excited to watch the draft? Like, are you kidding me? Like, am I really going to be excited for the draft when this is draft number how many? And they've gone against the draft rules countless times. It's so funny how they back themselves into a corner with a draft. If they want to do matches, they limit themselves. It's so ridiculous when you kind of think about it. Like, why is there a draft? Like, there's no reason to have one. Now, people will make the argument back when they did it in 2002 that it made stars and everything. Well, it sure as hell is not making stars now. There's nothing that they couldn't do with the draft, that they could just do without it. And in fact, it would actually probably benefit them because we could see, with Roman Reigns facing the same people over and over, like the whole thing with Kevin Owens. We wouldn't have that problem if we had some of the challengers that were on Raw. And I could just kind of see how it's going. We're kind of going into the same realm of problems. And this draft really didn't make a lot of sense, and I'm going to kind of talk about it in a way like I kind of don't understand it. I know a lot of the picks, the way how they rank these picks, they're trying to like save some people for Raw, but then they just kind of ended up making a lot of people kind of seem inconsequential. So they start off by saying this was a combination of like Fox executives and other TV executives, and I think they just said TV executives actually, including like USA, so meaning like USA and Fox and WWE. So that's kind of like what went into all of this because we don't have like the actual GMs anymore. So we have Adam Pearce and Sonya Deville. So one is like reading off the SmackDown names and the other one is like reading off the Raw names. And I don't know if they were kind of trying to give the illusion that maybe Sonya Deville might be there more on SmackDown than, she will be on Raw. And I don't watch Raw, as you all know. But, yeah, I guess Sonya has been on SmackDown more consistently than Pierce. And I think that's just because it's sloppy writing. I don't think it really was intended to be that way. But I guess now they're trying to make it sort of seem that way. But it wasn't even competitive. What you had was two people just blandly reading names, with the sole exception of when Sonya Deville reads Naomi's name. And Sonya was like so just, and same thing goes for Pierce. Like, could there be a little pizzazz put into this? A little bit of excitement? You see, this is what happens when you have authority figures that are not really invested in any of the storylines or any of these characters, with the lone exception of the Naomi one. But, like, you could just tell that both of these characters are, very remotely removed from any of the other characters on this show. So I just had to point that out beforehand. So let's talk about the first round picks here. We've got Roman Reigns remaining on SmackDown and Big E remaining on Raw. Okay, big surprise there that they keep the world champions, where they are supposed to be. They didn't do any do-si-do. I mean, they have done that in the past, but then they got to change the color of the belts and all that, and I guess they don't want to go through all that. But yeah, Roman Reigns, I don't think Fox wants to lose Roman Reigns. This guy is their draw. This is the reason why they get the ratings that they do. Partially, I kind of think, that's why they're not going to take the belt off for Reigns anytime soon, nor should they. We've got Bianca Belair going to Raw. I don't think, I'm just going to say anyone going to Raw, God help them on that show, a 3-hour nightmare. Thank God that like barely anyone even asked me to review that show, because I mean, I gotta tell you something. Even if I had like every single one of my subscribers asking me to review Raw, I just wouldn't. Because as you can tell, like I barely wanted to review this show. I just didn't really feel, but there was like certain things that I wanted to talk about. I'm like, all right, I'm not ready to go on a hiatus from this, but like I just wasn't in the mood. So I guess you could sort of say I kind of forced myself into watching this show, because as everyone knows, this kind of is just me giving back to the subscribers. Now, there are times when I just generally do want to watch wrestling, but this was kind of like one of those moments where it was more like, I'll do it for YouTube, but I'd rather be working on a video game video or something like, just talk. Like, I feel joy talking about the new Limp Bizkit. So, I don't really get a lot of joy talking about this show in general. Now, we'll get to the moments that I did enjoy that did bring me a little bit of excitement and entertainment value. But yeah, Belair is going to get lost in the shuffle. I mean, she was barely, looking like a star on SmackDown. Now, is she a star? In my opinion, yes. But, they've done everything to kind of butcher her run since the Royal Rumble. I mean, they were off to a really good start with her, and then it was like, phew, because they just had this idea of like mixing in all sorts of like weird stuff and getting other talent involved, and it just ended up becoming a big mess. Then we got Charlotte headed to SmackDown, which is a good move because, like, I've seen the stuff that they've had Charlotte doing, making dolls of herself and all this other nonsense. So it's great to see Charlotte back on a show where it seems like she probably will get the spotlight. SmackDown definitely is a lot less cluttered. See, that's the other thing. Not only is Raw just, 3 hours, I mean, you could neatly format a show. Like, I'll just tell you, like, when Russo was booking Nitro in, like, late 99, such a neatly formatted show that just flowed in and out and just was, that, like, it's proven. 3 hours is a long run time, but you can have an exciting, fulfilling and satisfying 3 hour show that doesn't feel like a downright nightmare to watch. But, that's the thing. It's so disorganized on Raw. It's just like, this is like what I hear and see when I watch. Like, seriously, it's almost like your screen is spazzing out watching an episode of Raw. It's unbearable. It's just like, if you want to get a headache, you watch that show. And if you want to feel like you're getting a colonoscopy, you go and you watch AEW. Like, I'm just saying, both shows terrible before the AEW fanboys start attacking me. I don't think they even really watch this anyway. They only come on when I do an AEW specific video. That's, of course, when they're gonna, because they look for videos with AEW negativity, and they have to defend. So I think we're safe here. This is our safe space. So yeah, you get all these, and you get the first 4 announcements. So that's round 1. It's really interesting that in round 1 they pick Bianca Belair, who's not even the champion, but before they picked Cringey Lynch, and I just found this odd. Like, this is round 1, so we're picking the world champions. Okay, and you want to get the women in there, at number 2, but they don't they picked the former champion? Like, huh? And this, like, will be talked about later in the show, and, like, no one questions it. They don't even try to make it into a storyline. Like, they can make, like, oh, well, you know what? Maybe the executives view Belair as more of a star, and Cringey Lynch could heel out on that. No. We'll talk about just how cringy it got and how just devoid of ideas they are for these storylines. So we get Roman Reigns coming out, and I'm basically hitting the 15 fast forward through this whole entire thing. This entrance is just, look, you guys know I love Reigns, probably one of the best parts of the show on almost every single show, but dear Lord, is this entrance a nightmare to get through. I mean, they're doing recaps. They're showing him beating the Demon at Extreme Rules, beating Finn Balor, which, by the way, I am so happy also that I barely got anyone asking me for Extreme Rules. Now, I don't know, not a lot of people, barely anyone, I think, from YouTube follows me on Twitter. Like, I'd say maybe like 0.03% of my subscribers. But if you do want to follow me on there, I have been more active. So, yeah, it's at TheBradRules 1. If you're interested, I always do put it down here in the description. If you don't ever click it, I guess no one really does. But yeah, I have been doing more than just, auto posting my YouTube videos to my Twitter. So I'm actually making actual posts now. So if anyone wants to see, my thoughts and opinions on various things that may be irrelevant to you or may be very relevant, you can go see them there. So I would encourage you to do so. But I did post on there that I wouldn't be doing Extreme Rules. Instead, I did the Mario movie casting reaction. And people seem to enjoy that for the most part. Now, of course, a very small portion, only about like 1/5 of the people that normally view these videos actually watch that one. But I said I wouldn't be watching Extreme Rules. Because why? Because, first of all, that show had nothing I was interested in. Even the Roman Reigns match, I didn't want to see anything on that show. All of it was repeats. I've already seen the Usos and the Street Profits. Am I really going to sit through a show? Even if I knew a lot of you would watch it, like, honestly, am I going to sit through a show 2.5 hours wasting my time just to make a video on it? You might be saying, well, you're leaving views on the table, Brad. Well, I have to say, once in a while, fuck the views, honestly, because, I want to have spare time to relax and do something interesting with my time, like watch a better show that, I don't know, I might actually like, or play a game or something like that, or work on a video on something that interests me more. So the thing is, that's why I didn't do Extreme Rules, because it's like, I could be like JD. I could do a video because, people want to see him talk about it, and he knows he's going to hate the show going into it, but he's going to watch it anyway. And he knows he's going to use it as an opportunity to put over AEW and all that other nonsense and make I'm misusing everybody. And I don't know what he said about the Finn Balor finish there, but I'm sure he went off the deep end. And I'm not going to watch his nonsense just to talk about it on here. But I would not be surprised if he said something to the effect of this is a great example why Balor needs to go to AEW. Probably did say something like that, I would think. Because I know a lot of other people were saying that. Balor, this insane finish of just the top rope collapsing, a planned finish like that. You'd have ring disasters that happened on purpose, like Big Show chokeslamming the Undertaker through the canvas. And, that resulted in the no contest because that was awesome looking. And it was because there was impact. Here there was no impact. Finn Balor, who's not even 200 pounds, is breaking the top rope. I mean, what the fuck was that? Like, and yet you're telling me that Roman Reigns, I get it, he's the demon and everything, and he's supposed to be, otherworldly powers, and I get that. But I mean, honestly, a guy that size, or are we really? Does Roman Reigns, the Universal Champion, who's been champ for more than a year, is this the biggest threat? And he's going to go on to face Brock Lesnar? Let's put all the idiocy aside. Am I really going to sit there and watch that and be like, oh, and I know, also looking at it, I was like, oh, you know what? That would have been a great opportunity. I probably could have ranted on it, and a lot of people would have laughed at it. Well, I'm ranting on it right now here. I don't have to watch a whole show, and that's why I didn't do it. Because I'll talk about it in the SmackDown review. But like, as you can tell, I'm not going to get super bent out of shape about it because, Balor was not over to begin with. He's a guy who paints his face once a year, and he basically wrestles the same style. He just sometimes no-sells certain moves. Like, am I going to sit there for nearly 3 hours watching a show where I knew that I was basically going to have this reaction? You see what I'm saying? Wasted time. Anyway, Roman Reigns, all this time, coming to the ring, still not at the ring even after the replay is done. Okay, stands in the ring for like another minute, finally starts talking, hands the mic to Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman starts talking about Crown Jewel, and, he talks about, how he beat Balor. They retread that again after we just saw it, but I get it, we got to bring everybody up to speed for the 90th time. Then he starts talking about Brock, and he says, he's going to beat him. It's not going to be Suplex City. Roman's going to smash him. Out comes Brock, a face-to-face, and this time he gets the Germans in on Roman Reigns. The Usos jump in. It really wasn't any different, seriously. I would have preferred that Brock cut a promo on Reigns. We get a little short promo from Brock later on, but we already saw Brock hitting the Germans, and beating up the Usos, and okay, he hit them on Roman, but we're going to see that anyway. I think it would have been better off not to have him even touch here. I would have gotten a little bit more out of just seeing him go back and forth because, I don't know what this weird thing is where, all of a sudden when Brock came back in 2012, it was like, oh, take the microphone. I almost said microphone away from Brock, and they just let Heyman cut the same promo for 8 years straight. And I'm happy that they're at least having him talk, but this was the perfect opportunity. Instead of doing basically the same thing we saw a few weeks ago, we could have had something a bit more refreshing where we didn't have to resort to them kind of doing the same thing. I mean, it was all right, but we already saw this. The only difference is he got his hands on Reigns this time. He bails out. I mean, it wasn't bad, but I'm just saying this was the perfect opportunity to just have these guys cut promos on one another. And I think it would have been a bit more of an interesting dynamic, and it would have felt more original. Because we're going to see these guys go at it anyway in the match. There's, and we could see Brock hitting those classic Germans because he's going to hit them anyway at the pay-per-view. I don't know, this is just that classic stuff. They wouldn't do this back in the day. You wouldn't see The Rock getting hit by the stunner before he went up against Stone Cold. They would wait for that move to be hit at the pay-per-view. They wouldn't give you that satisfaction right away. Anyway, maybe there might have been certain exceptions. I'm sure there were, and people could point them out. But anyway, Charlotte cuts a promo backstage. The Queen is on SmackDown, kind of generic. She looked really good, though, by the way. She really looked like a star here. Then we get a taste of Madcap Moss, where, I don't know, they turned this guy into, Muttley from Wacky Racers, like just snickering and laughing. And I mean, it's not at the level of Seth Rollins, but like, I don't know, we really gonna have two characters laughing maniacally? This, and the thing is with this guy, he's cutting bad jokes, but like, why are him and Corbin like together? It doesn't even make any sense. Like, his character has nothing to do with Corbin and cutting the bad jokes. I mean, it was entertaining for what he showed, and it was just kind of so cheesy. It was kind of good, but like, I don't understand why we had something that was getting to the level of being a classic character, like the bum ass Baron Corbin character. And now we've got Happy Corbin, where it's just kind of like, just, stunted for the camera, showing off the suit, showing off the watches, showing off the fedora. And it kind of feels like a way more shallow character, and maybe that's the point. But Corbin doesn't get enough, time here now to act. He was showing more to the camera, conveying a better character that required more effort. And he was seeming like he was having a pretty good time doing it. And he was getting to explore himself and his mind and his psychology and his acting. And it was coming off really good, even though a lot of the good stuff was on his IG account. But now we've kind of got this really way more watered down character, and I don't get like pairing him with Riddick Moss out of nowhere and having him play this even more bizarre character that has nothing to do with Corbin. Anyway, he beats Kevin Owens here. There's some like distraction. Corbin hits the end of days on Owens on the outside, hits it again on the inside, beats him. Then they just both start laughing like hyenas in the ring, and I'm just like, a month ago we had some good shit with Corbin, and I mean, and it kind of showed what all the things that I said that I saw in him for years and years. I'm like, this is it right here. He's now in his comfort zone. He left his comfort zone so he could get comfortable with a character that he felt comfortable with. None of this forced stuff like I'm the king, which we've seen 1,000 times. And it was just ripped away from him. Like, what were we even on that character for like a solid month? We couldn't even get like 2 months, 3 months of that character, before he got his, his string of luck. It just came out of nowhere. They're like, oh no, you're done. We're just gonna, now make you rich. And there was like nothing to appreciate it. There was no slow road to recovery. It was just a really terrible story told. They were telling a really good story. They had a beginning, and then they just went right to the end with no middle. They just zipped through the middle. It was like the biggest abridged version of storytelling I've ever seen. And it was actually a pretty good story that they had going. I'd love to see like the outline that Corbin had in his head, and maybe one of these days he'll share it, on what's that guy's name? Chris Valent, who does good interviews. Maybe one day he'll sit down with him when he's not in WWE anymore. We'll find out exactly what that original vision he had, because the guy is pretty much brilliant from what I've seen. This is kind of like the stuff we've seen from the mind of like Bray Wyatt. It just never becomes fully realized. And also Sami Zayn too is another one. We had, great character development. Then, Zayn's not even on the show. Not even talked about once on this show. So we'll move on, and we got Drew McIntyre coming to SmackDown. I think that's a very smart move. You have a very talented star here that looks like a star, carries himself like one as much as they allow him to, just, carrying around a big goofy sword called Angela, like actually giving it a name, which I didn't even know he named that sword. When did they give it a name? Like, I wasn't even aware of that. I watch when Russo reviews Raw, but I think he might have mentioned it, but I missed it, and sometimes I don't always watch the full review, and sometimes I miss it. I don't always like hear everything. So I'm like, Angela, like, and just when pointing the sword at camera, like, honestly, bringing this dynamic, and he says he's going after the Universal title. Honestly, bringing that dynamic into the world of Roman Reigns just sounds like a recipe for disaster. He's going to be threatening Roman Reigns with the sword, like from what I've seen, threatening uh, Jinder Mahal with the sword. Just some of the cringiest stuff I've seen. It might not be on the level of like Cringey Lynch, but I gotta say, like, it pains me to say, I'm talking about a guy here that when he beat down Kurt Angle, remember we talked about this years ago, like the facial expressions, but like the world title run that he had, forgettable. Like, honestly, they did nothing with his world title run. They made this guy slowly, progressively making him into this Scottish warrior, Braveheart, Mel Gibson, Mel McIntyre, Drew Gibson, as we were calling him just a few months ago. I mean, making this guy into a total goofball, like, kilt, face paint his face even more. Every single week he started, and he's always getting in touch with his culture. Like, is there anyone in Scotland, dressing like that anymore? I don't think so. The face paint? I mean, I'm surprised they didn't have the guy coming out playing the bagpipes. He could play his own theme music to the ring, right? I mean, that's like ridiculous. And SmackDown, I mean, Drew McIntyre is still a talented guy no matter what, still a great wrestler. But man, like, can we do something about his character, for God's sakes? RK Bro is on Raw now, and well, they were on Raw. They maintained on Raw is what I mean to say. I don't know. They're still keeping this up. I think that Orton could be better served than this, very watered down rock and sock connection that Mick Foley says is just as good. Yeah, sure it is. Okay. New Day is coming to SmackDown. Well, SmackDown is definitely going to be a lot cringier. That's for one thing. I mean, I just cannot believe, and by them saying that they're the number one tag team, they have no thoughts in their mind of breaking them up anytime soon. I mean, like, Jesus Christ, they've broken up so many tag teams. I mean, they broke up the Hardy Boys, a lot faster than this. They broke up Edge and Christian. They broke up the Dudleys quicker than this. I mean, talk about dragged out. Talk about, going to the well once too many times. And I get it. You have the Road Warriors. You've had so many of these tag teams, the Rock and Roll Express, the British Bulldogs that were together for so long. And they didn't break them up. But, I mean, man, it's not even like this is a good team. I mean, we're talking about two guys that make absolute asses out of themselves. And, they sell merchandise. I get it. I don't know how much they sell anymore, but I mean, like, this is just, people are going to turn this show on and they will turn it off when they see New Day. Just because the audience that's already installed from week to week is buying this just horrible merchandise that any grown man should just be embarrassed wearing out in public. But, you see a bunch of goofballs wearing it every single time. I mean, you actually had people with the unicorn horns on their head. And they probably didn't think anything of that, like how that looks and the innuendos that might deliver to the human eye, looking at you on TV, wearing that, being 38 years old, wearing a unicorn horn on your head. Not wondering, even the people in the arena think about you. I'm just saying, it's just an observation. But yeah, they're coming to SmackDown. Edge is going to Raw. Here's another reason to stop watching SmackDown sooner or later. Because one of the best parts of SmackDown is now gone. He's going to Raw, where I'm sure it's going to be a shit show. I'm just telling you, anyone going to Raw, let's just take a look and see what happens to them on Raw when they were on SmackDown. They're going to be lost in the shuffle, lost in that 3-hour tidal wave of nonsense, which is just a big old mishmash of gobbledygook, cringy crap. And, now they're bringing a lot of that New Day stuff, which we were safe from on SmackDown, safe from that cringe. Now they're bringing it here and sending Edge away. So, Drew cut the promo, as I mentioned before. Angela, Edge cuts his promo in the ring. Talks about how he's fine with going to Raw, and he, talks about how SmackDown was his home, but he's good. But then we get just a really great little segment here. Seth Rollins once again showing how much he has improved. Goes to Edge's house, I guess in Canada while he's away, or wherever it's supposed to be. I don't know if they said, but the door has been left open, I guess by accident or whatever it may be. Goes inside and just proceeds to just entertain the shit out of me. Just going into Edge's fridge, dancing around, drinking orange juice out of the container, eating an apple in the most sarcastic, hilarious fashion possible. Sits in Edge's study room. Just super entertaining. Making fun of Edge's daughter's artwork. I mean, this really, to me, this just showed, like, you compare this to Seth Rollins from 2016, 2017, whatever it may be, the cheesesteaks are fantastic, and you compare that to this, oh my God. I mean, I don't want to use that same energy stuff, but, it's like the ringmaster in Stone Cold Steve Austin. It's like on that level of just like, you got the cringe, and then you've got the good stuff. And that was the good stuff right there. Seth just showing us how far he's coming. And he's come a far way. And I think the man heading to Raw had a lot to do with it. Why is it that as soon as, Rollins was scheduled to have this feud with Edge, that things just started going in a whole different direction from this guy? Yes, he was working on that annoying laugh, and he just managed to meld that with just something that works so well for him. And it's a segment that I would actually advise some people to watch if you didn't see SmackDown. I think it's just an entertaining, about 3 or 4 minute little segment there, and it was just good. Then we see Edge panicking. He ran to the back, called up Beth Phoenix, called his friends. I like how McAfee says he's calling his friends. Why don't he call the police? And I'm like, well, that's actually a good point. But, whatever. I guess he was going to have his friend strong arm Rollins or whatever it may be. I don't know who Dave is and the other guy he said, but I don't know if those were references to any wrestlers of any kind. But yeah, good follow-up, good segment here and how they put this all together. The mind games that Rollins was playing, and he did kind of what he said he was going to do last week, following up on it. And for me, this was the show stealer. I mean, this was better than the Brock stuff, in my opinion. I thought, I was so good to get out of the arena, film something on a different location, and I'm pretty sure that was Edge's real house. It looked like it. I think, at least. I don't know. But I was seriously entertained by that. Unfortunately, from this point, the show goes way downhill. And really kind of looking in retrospect, this really was a pretty fucking shitty show. I mean, I didn't even kind of notice it now that I'm having some time to go through this. Because after this, we get Carmela and Liv Morgan. Carmela has a mask on, a glittery mask. This is going to stop you from hurting me. And then she gets in the ring, hits Liv in the face with it. And I guess that was it. We don't even get the match. Well, that was really shitty. And Liv's little promo walking down to the ring was just, I'm going to break your face. Can we get that microphone out of her hand for goodness sake? Why is it that Liv Morgan is getting more mic time than a lot of other more talented people on here? I'm just saying. I mean, they give the mic to her, and it's just, this mic should not be anywhere in her hand. She's not good, and we'll give her some time to improve, Brett. How about we improve while it's not being recorded and broadcast to millions of people at home? I'm just saying, like, why would they let an amateur who's already proven to be a bomb on the mic, why would they let her? I mean, you want to talk about, like, memorizing something out of your head? That's how it sounds, and it's just dreadful every time. So yeah, just they really, just unfulfilling. Like, how am I supposed to watch a segment and say, hey, that was good? Like, is there anything there? Oh, she's got a new mask. Okay, like, Sheamus has the mask already, right? Like, and now we're gonna see someone else wearing a mask? Are you kidding me? I mean, did they even realize that they already have someone wearing a mask on the other show? We've got Corbin. Next part of the draft. Corbin and Madcap Moss are staying on SmackDown. Rhea Ripley and Nikki, almost a superhero, are staying on Raw. Hit Row is coming to SmackDown. I don't even think they were on Raw, right? This is the NXT guys. I don't think they even appeared on Raw ever. But they're going to SmackDown. We're not really told too much about them. Keith Bearcat. Oh my God. Keith Bearcat Lee. I don't know about this name, like this nickname. I saw it online. I don't know why they said he's going to Raw. I mean, was he not already on Raw? He wasn't on SmackDown, so I guess he would have to be on Raw. I'm just saying. That didn't really make a lot of sense to me. I'm like, he was just on Raw. So he's I don't know if they just fucked up or something, but both Cole and McAfee were like agreeable on this. Like, yeah, he's going to Raw. No, he was already on there. I don't even watch Raw, I know that. Anyway, we've got New Day and the Street Profits defeating the Dirty Dogs, Chad Gable and Otis in an 8-man tag that just, like, honestly, this was just like, whoa! Like, I mean, I don't see the point here. There was nothing. I mean, you were better off later on. We're going to announce Jeff Hardy going to SmackDown. He doesn't even get a match, but we have just 8 people here that could be better served. Otis, the Street Profits, Montez, after... I'm not a big fan of his promo style, but he is charismatic, and he did put on a good performance against Roman Reigns last week. But instead just shove them all in 8-man, get them all out there. And it's just, there's nothing fulfilling about this. You're not like sitting there saying this is some serious entertainment. It's just a real throwaway match. And they have these every single show. They don't even feel special. They're just put a bunch of guys together. If you see the Dirty Dogs, just assume that they're going to lose. So we get more draft picks. Naomi is coming to SmackDown. And Sonya attempts to act here. Ooh. She showed some emotion for one of the draft picks. Then we get Ray and Dominic being drafted to Raw. A lot of package deals here. A lot of people. Remember when it used to be a threat because tag teams might be split. Now they just got people who are not even really like teams, like that just became teams, like Madcap Moss. He's just being drafted with Corbin. Like, okay, it's not like a big complaint. Like, I'm not really gonna care too much about it. I'm just saying it's really interesting that they're just doing so many of these pairings. Jeff Hardy is headed to SmackDown, which is another smart move because they have not been doing anything with that guy. I said this time and time again. How do you have a guy that, like, seriously, I know you want to, like, build stars, but I'm just saying, what if at Extreme Rules you built the match against Jeff Hardy and Roman Reigns? You would have made me watch that pay-per-view. I'm just saying. You know what I mean? If there was a match of Jeff Hardy versus Roman Reigns, guarantee you more people be watching that pay-per-view than Finn Balor versus Roman Reigns. Just such a waste, you know, and they don't miss an opportunity to say former world champion Jeff Hardy. Well, okay, you know, you put it up there, been 3 times world champion. Yeah, exactly. So if the world championship is worth a damn, then the guy would be out there more. You know, being more of a pivotal part of the show, not jobbing out, not being, you know, going up against Cedric Alexander on Raw, and these these nonsensical matches that have no weight to them. Jeff Hardy is a fucking legend. It's the same thing with Rey Mysterio. Treating these people like they're just other guys on the show when they should be royalty. Like, does anyone realize, like, what Rey Mysterio did for the WWE over these many years? How much merchandise this guy pushed? Merchandise that I bought? I mean, does anyone realize just what Jeff Hardy did for this business and you know, how much talent that they got the opportunity to hire because people were inspired by Jeff Hardy? First of all, you wouldn't even have any of these goofs in AEW doing these terrible looking spots if it wasn't for Jeff Hardy doing them properly and made them look good in the first place. You know, but now he's just being jobbed out for no apparent reason with no fanfare whatsoever. I mean, like, if Jeff Hardy's going to lose a match, it should mean something. Now he comes out there and it means nothing. And that, to me, is just revolting. I mean, these legends are not treated like legends. They're treated like worse than other talent. I mean, honestly, you know, like, just like throwaway talent. Anyway, Austin Theory is moving to Raw. Like, anyone gives a shit about that. Hey, here's a guy from NXT that no one cares. Yeah, he competed at WrestleMania. You know, when he stood in for Andrade that time. You know, he was a stand-in. That's basically it. They didn't even make him stick around on the main roster. Just probably the plainest looking dude you could possibly get. Jeff Hardy goes in for an interview and he's cut off by Brock Lesnar. Now, something about that really bugged me. I'm like, all right, Brock's getting some mic time. I was happy to see that. But I'm like, at the expense of Jeff Hardy? Like, this couldn't be at the expense of anyone else. It just seems to me like they're fucking with the guy. And, you know, this is his first night on SmackDown here. Well, I mean, the draft doesn't go into effect in 3 weeks, but they're ready to interview the guy. And this is the best that we could do. Have him get cut off. And he just backs away from Lesnar. And I get it, you know, he's the smaller guy, but, like, you know, I just would have done this in a different way. Just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Anyway, Brock gets a little promo back here, which I did like seeing. It was, you know, long overdue over these many years, as I said. You know, he said he is a free agent now thanks to Paul Heyman, and only due to Paul Heyman. He really stressed that point, like, so there's going to be tension there. And what I did like is how they cut to Roman Reigns after this, and he was pissed off. He screams at Paul. He made like it was really calm, and Paul was like stuttering and stammering and, you know, trying to come up with an excuse for why this was, and he couldn't find the words. And, you know, Reigns, you know, said, he was muttering himself, yeah, you're the wise man. And he screamed at him, and I thought that was great. That right there was a highlight on a show that didn't really have many. I thought that was a pretty good little bit follow up to that. So I like that they did thread that throughout the show. I mean, we did have to wait quite a bit of time to see a follow up. But we've got the main event now. It's Sasha Banks defeating Bianca Belair after Cringey Lynch tortures us on commentary with, like, I don't know what the hell this was, but they just said, like, you know, go off the script and just shoot from the hip and whatever. And I was like, what the fuck is she even saying? This was like the most insane sounding dialogue that I've ever heard. I mean, what was she trying to convey here? She's trying to be a heel. She's doing a terrible job at it. There's nothing of any substance was being said, and there's like several minutes of dialogue being traded between her and the announcers, and she's still struggling she's just recounting beating Bianca at SummerSlam, recounting WrestleMania 35. She's claiming that she has 2 belts, and Michael Cole has to correct her. And there was a few other little errors she was making. She was fucking up a lot. And I mean, this just shows me that, like, I've never seen this before, where they're like forcing her to be this center attraction that she's not. And I've said it now on this channel here for years. We, talk about, Cringey Lynch, Try Hard Lynch, all these things. And it's not her fault even. It's mostly because they just refuse to acknowledge that she's not ready to have all this. And she never was, but we're still going through with this years later. This is just not a character for her. This arrogant, braggadocious character. It's just one of the most manufactured characters. It feels so artificial and put together. It's almost like you said, like, give me a cocky character and you fed it into a machine with a script, and out came Cringey Lynch. And we get a little distraction from Cringey Lynch. We got Sasha Banks with a sunset flip, and that is enough to put away Bianca Belair. Then Charlotte comes in the ring, kicks both their asses, and we've got her holding up the belt. Cringey Lynch is holding up her belt. And I'm just saying, like, okay, so why wasn't she one of the draft picks? Is that supposed to be Survivor Series build that I'm looking at there between the two of them? I mean, like, what were they going for there at the end? I know you want to slot Charlotte in there, and you want to, make this her big first night on SmackDown. But I didn't get, like, what this was supposed to be. There's supposed to be a triple threat match at Crown Jewel. That's what we're going for. And they just put Charlotte in there right away. And I don't know if they're, like, planning on doing something a little different here. Maybe they're going to put both of the belts online or something. But it didn't look that way originally. I don't know. I just was left kind of confused at the end. And this is probably their messy booking. But I was like, okay, after all that madness on commentary, to just have that, like, Charlotte just dropping in on this feud and, like, okay, now we're going to have another player in this. We could barely tell the story with 2 people, with Cringey Lynch and Belair. Then we're going to throw in Sasha Banks. And then on top of that, we're going to throw in Charlotte. Is that really a good idea? Of course it's not, but they're going to, stay the course. Anyway, this show, besides, like, the Brock segment, we already saw that. I like the reaction backstage with Heyman later on. But the Seth Rollins segment, that really stole the show for me. I mean, that was just such a good little piece that they put together there. I give them all the credit in the world, and all the credit in the world goes to Seth Rollins for performing it. But overall, I mean, this show and the draft picks, it's like, does anyone even care about that stuff? All the different draft nights that we've had, all the different variations of the draft, the brand extension, enough is enough already. The draft is such a waste of time. We end up breaking the rules anyway. Then we're going to have this ridiculous Survivor Series SmackDown versus Raw when people were just on shows a few months ago. Unless they forego that ridiculousness, maybe for one time this year. Could they? Maybe, possibly. They won't. Anyway, let me know what you thought down in the comments down below, guys. Please subscribe if you haven't already, and click the bell so you get all the notifications when I post all my new videos. And I want to thank all my patrons for your continued support. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you next time.